Over the past few days, we've seen horrific visuals coming out of Bangladesh. Indian diplomatic missions, not just in Dhaka, but also in Chittagong and other parts of Bangladesh, were attacked. Residences of Indian diplomats were targeted. Major Bangladeshi newspapers like the Daily Star and Pratham Olo had their offices ransacked and vandalized. One of these offices were even set on fire. So the obvious questions that arise are, what triggered this violence in Bangladesh? Who was assassinated for this violence to take place? Why are only Indian missions and Indian high commissions being targeted in Bangladesh? And where is Bangladesh heading politically, and how does this fit into the geopolitical scheme of things? Welcome everyone, I am Mukund Kadlabal and you're watching KATV India. To understand what's happening in Bangladesh, we need to focus on two crucial dates. The first date, February 12th, 2026. On this day, Bangladesh will hold its national elections. But this is not just any elections. The voters for this election will cast two votes in the same booth. One to elect their member of parliament like before, and another will be to voice out their opinion on a national referendum on something that is known as the July Charter. This referendum is critical because it proposes major constitutional changes in Bangladesh. These include reducing the power of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, redistributing the authority between the Prime Minister and the President, changing how key appointments of the government of Bangladesh are taking place, introducing a bicameral parliament as we know it as Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, the upper house and the lower house. So bicameral means two houses instead of the unicameral legislation that is in Bangladesh as of today. So in short, the elections that take place on February 12, 2026 could change Bangladesh's entire political system and its governance ecosystem. The second date which I want to talk about is December 25th, which is soon approaching. This is when Tariq Rahman, son of former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Khalid Zia, is expected to arrive in Bangladesh to lead the BNP, his political party's election campaign. So why does this matter? Why does him returning matter? Because Khalid Zia, the former Prime Minister, is critically ill and the BNP is currently leading in Bangladeshi opinion polls for the national elections. The ruling Awami League, which is Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister's party, has been blocked or boycotted from contesting elections. So this makes it almost a one-horse race where the BNP are firm favourites as of today to win the Bangladeshi national elections. So this is where a lot of the contradictions take place. So as all of you know, there's been a lot of violence in Bangladesh, a lot of mob lynchings and all the other things that you've seen on social media. So why has this taken place? How have we reached a situation in Bangladesh where mob justice becomes the rule of law and rule of law takes a backseat? On the 12th of December 2025, a 32-year-old Bangladeshi activist called Sharif Osman bin Hadi was shot in the head after his Friday prayers. Two men on a motorcycle stopped him while coming out, and one of them pulled out a pistol and shot at him point blank. Hadi remained alive for several days, but as all of you know, Bangladeshis have this deep hatred towards India and anything Indian. They feel that they are equivalent to India in both economy and military aspects. So what did the great people of Bangladesh do? They flew him to Singapore for medical treatment, which is a 5-hour journey from Dhaka, as opposed to Kolkata, which is in India and only mere 30 minutes away, which have both world-class medical infrastructure. So what was the result of this great decision by the people of Bangladesh? On December 18th, Hadi died. And this is when Bangladesh exploded. So who was Sharif Osman bin Hadi? Hadi was not a mainstream politician, he wasn't an elected representative. He was the rising face of the protest movement that brought down the Sheikh Hasina government in August 2024. He belonged to a loose right-wing platform called Inqilab Manch, which comprised of many smaller parties and other individuals. It literally translates into revolutionary platform. But why was he influential? To give Hadi his credit, he was a fiery speaker, he was openly anti-India, and he espoused radical thoughts amongst the people of Bangladesh. He was extremely popular amongst these radical groups. His few favorite phrases were Indian hegemony and cultural fascism. He kept dropping these terms and regularly accused India of controlling Bangladeshi's politics, more or less painting a them versus us picture. So he probably didn't even know what these terms meant. But I guess saying anything to gain political limelight these days is in a trend. He even displayed a map of the greater Bangladesh, which triggered dangerous secessionist elements across the border, which largely meant that the claims Bangladesh had over parts of northeastern India and other parts of India. So he was a big proponent of this greater Bangladesh narrative. After his death, rumors spread rapidly. People in Bangladesh and his supporters said that the assassins came from India, that they escaped back to India once the deed was done, and India and the Indian government is somehow responsible for the assassination of Hadi. The alleged shooter has since been arrested, but his accomplice is still missing. Almost immediately, protesters and Hadi sympathizers demanded that the Indian government hand over the accused. They also demanded that Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister, be extradited back into Bangladesh, and they demanded that the Indian mission in Dhaka be shut down. The situation spiraled out of control. Amid this chaos, a Hindu man in Bangladesh, a Hindu minority man called Deep Chandra Das, was accused purely on a rumor by his co-worker of blasphemy. And what followed was horrifying. He was lynched, he was beaten up, he was publicly hanged, and his body was burnt. All this while hundreds of people gathered around, filming it on their phones. The video is not something I recommend you watch. It is gruesome and painful. It showed how little Hindu lives are valued in an Islamic nation like Bangladesh. So why is India at the center of this anger? The protest movement that removed Sheikh Hasina was strongly anti-India. Why? Because Sheikh Hasina was seen as an India-friendly ruler. She is currently staying in India, and people think that the Indian government had a role in everything that Sheikh Hasina did during her time as Prime Minister, and India's refusal to hand her over back to Bangladesh has created this anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh. And is India right to refuse the extradition of Sheikh Hasina? In my opinion, yes, because Bangladesh in its current state is as good as a South Asian Yemen. Mob rule reigns supreme in the country, and the Yunus government, for all practical purposes, is powerless. In such a situation dominated by mobs and instability, there is no possibility of a fair trial. No responsible country, no democratic country would extradite someone under these conditions. Still, this refusal has become a major rallying point for radical groups in Bangladesh. One of their party leaders even said that we are at war with India, which is kind of laughable. The bigger political problem, however, is that Sharif Hadi had contested before as an independent candidate. He had opposed BNP candidates, Awami League candidates, and he had rejected a lot of these traditional parties. His assassination at this time raises a lot of serious questions. Will these radical forces or the radical parties of Bangladesh's right-wing politics accept the election's outcome in February? Can law and order be maintained in the event of an outcome that these radical forces have not foreseen? Will this election and in turn the referendum ever be credible? The government says that nearly 1 million troops and police personnel will be deployed on election day, saying that it will be a free and fair process. To this I only say, a government that couldn't protect one Hindu minority life in their country from an extremist mob in a police station nonetheless, how can they conduct free and fair elections and any possible protests that rise from these elections? So what is the July Charter that we talked about before? I spoke about the elections that take place for your members of parliament in Bangladesh and a referendum on the July Charter. So what is this July Charter? Alongside your parliament elections, Bangladeshi voters will be asked one simple question. Do you accept the July Charter? That's it. And your answer can be a yes or a no, nothing else. But the July Charter is not a single question. It's not a single line question. It's a 66-page document proposing sweeping changes into Bangladesh's governance system. Some of the things that the July Charter proposes are reducing the Prime Minister's power, strengthening the President, creating an upper house like the Rajya Sabha in India, removing party whips except during confidence motions, the rules to change caretaker governments, electoral reforms, judicial reforms, quota systems, and a lot more. Initially, voters were supposed to answer multiple of these questions with yes or no. However, after it snowballed into a controversy, the current Bangladeshi establishment simplified the entire charter into one approval. So there are a lot of facets of this charter, but the voter can just say whether he likes the charter as a whole or not. So this makes this referendum extremely powerful and also risky. So what if a voter agrees with one part of the referendum? What if he agrees that the Prime Minister's powers should be curtailed? But what if the voter also feels that Bangladesh should not become a bicameral legislation? So there is no choice for the voter to disagree with proper parts of the charter. So a yes for this charter can be interpreted as blanket approval, can be interpreted as yes to every clause of this charter. So there's a lot of history behind such charters and blanket approvals. Our neighbors in Pakistan in 1984, when Pakistan had a military ruler called General Zia-ul-Haq, they held a similar referendum. One vague blanket referendum and sweeping changes as a part of this referendum. To your surprise, the referendum got 98.5% approval. Later, Pakistan, as we all know, ceased to exist as a fully functioning democracy. Zia-ul-Haq used it to consolidate power, manipulate elections, and undermine democracy as a whole. So why should you and I as an Indian be so bothered in this situation as Bangladesh? Bangladesh is largely at a crossroads. In the coming weeks, it must decide whether elections can be held peacefully, whether constitutional change will be democratic or imposed, or whether mob politics will give way to institutional stability and rule of law. India too has a direct state. Instability on its eastern border helps no one. Instability in Bangladesh means more extremism, more refugees. The last time there was instability in East Pakistan, India had to step in militarily, which is why we know today's Bangladesh exists. So what's my larger take on this issue? Bangladesh in the past few years, despite its economic growth, has been exposed to Islamic extremism. These extremists in Bangladesh, in my opinion, are a funny bunch. They think that Bangladesh is economically and militarily on par with India. They've created this scenario in their head. They think that every problem in Bangladesh is an Indian creation. Problems in Bangladesh aren't an Indian creation. Bangladesh, your country itself, is an Indian creation. Statements like we will separate the Northeast from India, we will wage war against India are honestly laughable. Your military can't even manage a few thousand protesters. Do you think they stand a chance against the Indian military might? Bangladeshis should honestly fix their country before talking about India or any of their neighbors. Why would India destabilize Bangladesh? Let's be honest. What would India gain by even doing this? A destabilized Bangladesh means India has more problems. Secondly, religious extremists in Bangladesh have a deep hatred towards the notion of secularism, and Hindus in particular. Their version of Bangladesh is an Islamic state for Muslims and Muslims only. And the minorities of Bangladesh have no place in this, especially Hindus. The lack of attention on this matter from Indian mainstream media houses or even the political class of India, including the BJP, which is the flag bearer of Hindutva in this country, is shocking. If organizations within India won't take a stand for persecuted Hindus across the border, who will? So what do you think? Can Bangladesh navigate this transition peacefully? Or are these events signs of deeper instability in the region? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for joining me here on KATV India. This is Mukund Kadlabal, and thank you for your time.